Okay, we'll call this meeting to order at 6:31. First item on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and with liberty and justice for all. On to agenda amendments, we have one under old business. There will be financial report also, which will come after the warrants. We'll call it A1. A-1, financial report. I have no other amendments.
What?
Perfect. So on to correspondence, visitors and public comments. We do have one correspondence that everyone on the board, I believe, got from Toby McGuire, former board member. Just, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but it's basically encouraging us to look at administration and student ratios. And I've talked to Julie about it already. She's going to bring it up to the admin team, and we'll work through it.
Yep, and what was interesting is he asked about enrollment and had planned since July that this would be the month that I would bring our enrollment data, because October 1st is when we collect it all from the schools. So I have our fall official enrollment data for all our schools in the newsletter this month, so it was timely.
Any public comments? Hearing none, we'll move on to consent agenda and approval of the minutes for October 15th.
I'm just asking Pierre, I do not recall getting a copy, and I can't bring a copy up now. Do we have a copy we can put on?
We do, and I have a hard copy done as well.
Oh, that'd be great.
I sent it as an attachment. I don't know if it's no longer on the drive. I did. I left it.
I just printed mine about an hour ago, so they're out there.
Okay, well, I'm sorry, I'll re-upload it. So I did send it as an attachment on Tuesday.
So first I'll look for a motion to approve.
Motion approved.
I can second that.
First was Devin, second was Steve. Any discussion?
Yeah, there was, in the correspondence section, the second paragraph, the name of the person who was sent that letter, Eden. I believe it's actually spelled.
Yeah, it's longer.
Oh,
O-U-I-N or something.
What's
It's E-A.
it spelled?
E-A-D-O-I-N.
Yeah.
I was looking at the girl.
I thought it was a male.
No, it's a guy.
It is? Oh. E-A-D-O-I-N.
Okay.
Any other corrections? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the minutes as adjusted, signify by saying aye.
Right?
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. On to presentations. First one up is the MVU Field Studies presentation.
So we have a student, teacher, and a parent that we'd like to have come up from the field study program. Where would you like them to come? In the front here or all the way up in front of the screen, you think? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Why not? Come right up by the front.
Okay, in front.
In the horseshoe. With some guests. Jeff, do you want to introduce them?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. I'll mess it up.
So I'm really pleased that we have this opportunity. My name is Jeff Benet. We started the field studies program in conception about 6 years ago, and that's what it was. We started talking about it, and we started talking about it here and just at the superintendent's level, and we really thought this could work at MVU. The idea for hands-on learning, experiential outdoor education. We went down to Otter Valley Union High School where they had something called the Moose Lamoo program, and it was extraordinary. We came back and we thought it could really work here, but we wanted it to be an MVU program. And it was really important that we not be adopting what they're doing, but rather what we can do. In order for this to work, it was going to really depend on the people we had on board. And we've been very, very lucky. And I want to just introduce those folks and let them take it from here. First of all, consultant to the program from day one has been Mike Kane, retired, a real legendary person from BFA, who I've known for about 30 years. He also ran a watershed program at SOAR. So I knew what Mike was doing with outdoor education. It was like, this is someone we want to get involved. So Mike came on board, and then we looked to the faculty here, and I'm really pleased that Nate Poore and Jamie St. Marie are the folks who have been running the program from day one. This is something that we hoped would work, and it does work, and that's what you're going to see tonight, hearing people talk about why it does work. So guys,
Yep.
take it away.
So my name's Nate Poore. I'm the science teacher part of field studies. This is Jamie
St. Marie,
Marie,
special educator part of the field studies,
Yeah.
and co-teacher with Nate.
And we could put on a big show and stuff for you, but we were told we were more interested in a report back from a student. So we've got a student with us today to give his perspective on how we're doing,
As well as his mom.
as well as his mom.
My name's Christopher. My name's Christopher Olio, and before I got in the class, I'd just get in trouble and not focus on my work at all or anything. And then I got in the class and we sit inside for like an hour, do work. We go outside, do stuff, learn, then come back in and do more work. Just it's a lot easier for us to focus, pay attention more.
I have seen a tremendous difference in him this year. He went from a student that was always in the office, being suspended, always seems to be having trouble in classes, got kicked out of a couple of the classes, to this year where he is actually enjoying school, looking forward to going. He talks very positive about the field studies program, and it has definitely done wonders for him.
That's cool.
I'd like to just mention, Chris, thank you so much for getting up here, because it's not easy, is it?
No, it is. That's great.
In the last 3 years, we developed a 1-, 3-, and 5-year program, projections for this program. In the last 5 years, kids that have been seniors that have been in the program, 15 of them have graduated. I would say that probably half of those were very at risk of not graduating, and because of what we've put together here. It's just really an outstanding program. I've developed 5 of these in my 40 years, just to age myself. And the key is who's running the programs, and the components of the program they put together, and these guys have just knocked it out of the park. Really outstanding. Kudos to Jeff. He's really put some money into the fact that we do a 2-day curriculum development project in the summer that Jeff pays for out of the money. He pays me, which is nice. But it's really been the ongoing development of this program. Some things have worked, some things haven't, and it's really gelling and coming together really well.
Every student, when we could talk and bring in another 10, 15, 20, 25 students who would all talk the same language. And the parents who, when I see parents on the street who say, my God, it's like a different child. He wants to go to school. Instead of struggling and fighting about getting him to school, he wants to come. What we knew was, what we saw down in Moose Lamoo, is that the kids might initially say, the morning sessions, well, we don't love school, but they know that unless they do what they've got to do in the morning, they're not going to get to go to field studies in the afternoon, and it works. These kids are really motivated, and it's just been great. I think it's exceeded everything that you and I thought. I mean,
Oh.
we thought maybe we'd be here in a couple of years from now,
Right.
but to see where Nate and Jamie have taken this is just phenomenal. How many students are in the program right now? 15?
Yes.
It's just great.
I
Can you
think
say
for
a few
Jamie's-
of the outdoor opportunities that kids get to do? Like, what are the kinds of things that are the hands-on engaging outdoor activities?
Probably the coolest thing that we do is in October for 4 years now, we've been meeting up with a Vermont Fish and Wildlife biologist, and we've been electroshocking, sampling the native brook trout in a tiny little stream in Montgomery. And the first year, we were just, establishing a relationship with the agency, and, he did all the sampling and we did all the scooping, and the measuring and the weighing and all that good stuff. But this year, now that we've got this hand in glove sort of relationship with professionals, kids were able to suit up on a, $10,000 or $15,000 unit, and got to wade up a stream and zap trout, just stuns them for a second. We scoop them up, but we've got 4 years of data on a wild trout stream in Vermont, and if this was a master's project, that'd be it. That'd be 2-3 years and done. Nobody would do it again for 20 years. But we've got the potential of tracking how, salting the road right there, or changing a culvert, or any sort of climate change, any sort of impacts to that stream are going to affect the trout size and age distribution. And if we keep this relationship going, there's like a PhD or a master's or a really good science fair project in it. So that's probably like the standout. And I asked the biologist that we worked with this year, because they put in a new guy. I'm like, hey, you're a fisheries biologist. When's the first time you got to put on an electroshock unit and zap a stream? And what did he say? His second year of college? So that's pretty cool. This guy's majoring in fishery science, and he had to wait till he was 21 to do something that two of our kids, get to do this fall.
I think another example too, another great example, we've been working with Rise Vermont, which I'm sure you guys are familiar with. And these guys wrote a grant that brought in $4,000 into this program. And the kids were part of that, writing that grant and getting that grant. So what a rich experience that is for them, and the outcome of bringing $4,000 into the school. It's
We
great
also
stuff.
do a lot of community service, giving back to our community. So just recently, we helped create do the outdoor classroom at Swanton Elementary. So they got to hang the sign, fix the seating area, kind of fix it up to look kind of halfway decent. So they ended up doing that. In the past, we've done things for Swanton Rec, the Highgate Library, lopping the trails for the Lamoille Trail System.
They
Northern
built a
Valley Canoe.
portage staircase down to the river, so canoeists and kayakers could get around the Swanton Dam. So if you've ever calculated like rise over run and slope, that's all great when it's on a piece of paper and you can throw it away. But when it's a staircase made out of cedar and you've only got this much wood, you've got to make sure it's right.
There's a sign also down at Marble Mill that the students were able to work with local people like Ron Kilburn and all of them to learn about the history of Swanton and other things that have been around. Not a lot of kids realize some of the things that happened around us. So we've done that in the past, and that sign down at Marble Mill was something that the kids grouped up. They took on certain sections and they wrote up the little description, and their names are on the board. So there's a lot of community service, a lot of giving back to our community.
There's definitely a variety of different things that they're doing that is educational, but to them they're not really realizing fully that it's educational, because to them it's fun to do and they're learning at the same time, so.
That's the trick.
Do you have a waiting list?
We do. Every year we have a lot of applicants.
We're all the way down to J-Pod, and you can see kids kind of float by, like window shopping.
Yeah.
Like the first few minutes of that Christmas movie where they're all looking through the glass.
Last year we had about 40 applicants, and we do a very intense kind of application process. The students have to apply. They have to answer some questions. An adult has to also refer them to the program. We interview the students, and we also interview the parents. So there's a lot to it, and it starts in January. So there's a lot to kind of the program. It's not just you're in it just because you want to be or because somebody chose you to be in it. There's got to be other things that we need to look at first.
You're in it for 4 years? Or what do you get?
You could theoretically be in it for 4 years. Our longest kid was 3 years. But most people are 1 or 2.
Do you have to apply every year?
Yes.
Yeah, you have to reapply.
Yep.
I think one of the nice outcomes too is the seniors. I think it was it 6 seniors that were out on jobs last year?
Yes. With
Because
Mr. Barwin.
they got through their academic stuff, and so they're getting some real hands-on vocational stuff. One of them is now full-time at Sticks and Stuff over here. One's working for V-Trans, right?
No longer.
Oh, no longer,
Fleet Pride.
but yeah, okay. Yeah.
Don, another question, when you bring that up, that's one of the things that, we deal with, and we have to deal with that notion that all these kids wanting to get into it, and how do we deal with that? And Mike, from his experience at SOAR, is one to say to us, slow down. We don't want to just take this and make it bigger. Bigger is not necessarily better. And yet, because of the number of kids and parents who want their kids getting into this, it's been difficult because you get those phone calls. Well, how does my child get into field studies? So there's a tug there, there's a pull. We've got to deal with that.
So we
It's a
have
good
some
thing to
goodies
deal
for
with.
you. We have a brochure and then a recent newsletter that went home to all parents. Because a lot of times, even myself, I have a 10-year-old, but a lot of times even the older kids, you ask them, what'd you do at school today? Oh, nothing.
Yeah.
What do you mean nothing? You just came from there 2 minutes ago. Oh, nothing.
Yeah.
So there's a struggle because it's like, oh, tell them all the fun things, and they're actually are sharing some information, but we also want to make sure that they're touching on the other academic piece because we don't want to have a misinterpretation of it's not always the fun stuff. There's always that academic piece, the learning, the sitting down, getting the lectures, here and there. So there's more to just the hands-on fun, let's go to the stream electroshock. They really got to dissect it and learn and educate themselves about what they're doing. And then even after we're done, we take it back to the classroom and then we embed the math and science and all this other kind of stuff so that they're learning and they're doing math at the same time, learning those skills by doing something fun as well and being able to relate it to something they don't.
Be more in tune to the classroom work, having that outside piece to coincide with the indoor piece, and that way they kind of breaks it up and gives them an opportunity to be able to focus a little more when they're in the classroom.
Yeah, sure.
So I have the brochure. There's some quotes in there from students. There's some pictures, our mission statements.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Chris, I have a question for Jen Short.
Very proud of you.
Good, you're done.
Awesome.
Hi, Megan. Hi. Hey, Devin.
I have a question for Jen Desorda.
Sure.
So Jen, how do we make this all work with making sure we get embedded credits or proficiency or whatever? And I'm asking you because I figure you're the...
Yeah, so we've had so previously what we were calling essential learning outcomes, which were the guaranteed curriculum of our courses in science and math. Jamie and Nate have access to those. Nate's an active part of his science department. And as we're transitioning to proficiency-based graduation requirements and indicators, they have access to those as well. So they're able to plan their work around those indicators. It just might not be in the same sort of order, sequence, or with the same content that is happening in the other classrooms.
And are you the one that validates that these things actually happen?
Well, so these certified teachers are validating that it's actually happening, yes.
Don, one thing that that we built into the program was social emotional learning. Because don't get offended, Chris, but a lot of these guys don't have the social skills, if you will, to deal with the public that they may need. So we build it right into the programming. For instance, I manage 100-acre woods in Fairfax, so we had the recreation director come down, and I said, hey, this guy's your boss. He's our boss. So they learn how to deal with the public, and they're also doing community service stuff. So that brings them the pride of doing these projects and becoming community members too. Eventually once they get out of high school. So it's real good stuff. It's really a rich program. It's you guys are lucky, and I'll tell you, there's only 3 in the whole state that do this and do it well, and you're one of them. So.
Is there have you seen any direct correlation between the students who have been in the program and once they go on to graduate, what they end up doing work-wise? Do you see a strong correlation between what they've learned in this program and what they ultimately end up doing, or is there much follow-up?
I'm not sure we've been doing it long enough to really create that sort of data set. We had a student last year who aspired to be, one of the few Vermont female game wardens, and it's going to take a few years to see that play out. A lot of our people are hands-on people that would rather, build a house or fix a car than go to college, but all that stuff hasn't really trickled to the bottom yet.
But we'll do that. That evaluation piece is important.
But the other piece to remember too is when it first started was the dropout prevention program.
Right.
And to be honest, there's a lot of success stories that these kids who you probably wouldn't see out in the workforce are actually out in the workforce and have a full-time job that they've held. And that's huge for some students. We have one that's working that was with her 3 years, and he's full-time at Swanton Lumber and loves it. And he's constantly getting a raise because he shows up every day. He's on time, and that's the social emotional piece that we've kind of instilled in some of these students. We're not going to hit them all, we know that, but it's those success stories, that it strives us every day to come into work and keep doing what we're doing. Because we're not going to hit them all, but those ones that we do hit, it's a huge accomplishment.
But the bottom line is, on a Tuesday night at 7 o'clock, a student from MVU is addressing the school board, and that's pretty amazing.
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
That I wish I had said what I feel like every time I go into field studies. It's a family, and I feel a sense of belonging. And I think that's really what it's all about. It's that sense of belonging. It's that family. And wow, that's just great, and that's great what you guys have been able to establish.
That says it all right there.
Right there. Thank you.
Thanks, Chris.
Great.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Yes.
Jen?
You said it was the Vermont Department of Fish and Wildlife that you worked with for the streams, and you're building a relationship up with them. Have you thought about doing a discussion with them, with some of the students that are really interested in possibly doing like a summer internship with the Vermont Department of Fish and Wildlife to keep them going and interested throughout the summer, whether it be paid or not, but gives them something to do and keep them into it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm pretty notorious when we have these interactions with professionals, asking them, so what did you study? What did you like when you were a kid? When did you decide to go to college? And we've had these discussions with people about summertime opportunities. The answers we've got is that, so many people want these opportunities that they're honestly getting gobbled up by college kids, not high school kids.
We have had one in the past, or maybe 2, that have participated in like the duck banding stuff on the weekends. So they are getting their hands kind of in with the Vermont fishing game, but like Nate said, it's a lot of the college kids that are doing the apprenticeships or anything like that with them.
Yeah, I just had a question. Somebody mentioned, I think it was you, that it was 40 applicants and 13 are through. 15, okay.
Yeah.
I guess in the end, I just want to know, there must be criteria as to academics and whether or not, and like you said, they stick with the program. And but is there any way to expand that a little more? I mean, this
The other
this
piece
is
that
a
we
really
have to
nice
remember
program.
is the supplies and the equipment that we
Okay.
have. We're limited on what we can have, and plus there's only the two of us. So
Yeah.
if we increase numbers wise, we would have to increase staff wise. So that's another kind of hurdle altogether.
Another discussion.
Yeah.
And space.
Correct.
I could speak to that. I've done 5 of these programs, and as they expand, number one, you got huge risk factors. When we were running the program down at SOAR Learning Center, we were rock climbing, we're on the lake on canoes and kayaks. Once you start expanding that sort of stuff, the safety factor is really tough. And then there's a factor of you got a great program going right now with tremendous quality. Do you keep that or do you water it down? And all the programs I've seen 3 programs be killed because they wanted to expand it, and it gets watered down, and it's not what the quality of what these guys are doing right now.
I mean, this young man's doing a good job. I'd like to see a lot more.
Oh, unbelievable! Yeah.
Don?
So back to Jen.
Yes.
So how, because I agree with you 100%, having been involved in the program a long while ago, that was somewhat like this. It did so well, everybody wanted to add another teacher and another this, and it got some things started, challenges. So how can we take some of this information and the types of things and transfer it to the teachers in the regular classrooms? I don't need an answer tonight, but I think it's something we always should be striving for.
I know, it's a small piece of it, but many of our teachers are working to increase physical movement in the class period every day. We have 80-minute classes in the high school, and that's a long period of time. And we're actually going to be collaborating with Rise Vermont in January to provide some specific training for our 9th grade team around incorporating physical movement in ways that are appropriate for high schoolers, because a lot of the physical movement stuff that is accessible to teachers is really elementary school based. And so we're looking into ways specifically to do that.
Thank you.
Tom, one thing that is happening right now, this other guy and I are developing an outdoor adventure after-school program at BFA. So that's kind of a natural way that could happen and hit more kids. Maybe some of the kids that aren't involved with interscholastic sports too, and they're learning about the resources in the area, Eagle Mountain, stuff like that. So that's keep you informed on that, because I think that's going to take off.
I don't know about the board members, I certainly like to know more about that.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
Seeing no more.
Thank you guys.
very
Thanks for the
much.
time.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay, we'll move on to MVU administrative reports. First one up is the early early college.
You want me to answer it as well?
Please.
You guys want to just take one and pass one down? So some of the information on this, the front is specific to early college program in the state, and then on the back of it is specific to MVU. So just some information on the front is that who our early college partners are, and then just some key points on the early college program. There are 6 colleges that are partnered with the early college program that is funded by the Agency of Education. Once a student is accepted into an early college program, they must disenroll in their high school or home study program. That's key. They shall be enrolled in the college full-time, and they're responsible for applicable fees and textbook costs. So essentially how the tuition is paid for every senior that is enrolled in an early college program, the Agency of Ed pays 87% of that tuition.
And with those partners, that 87%, they have agreed that that would be their full tuition. So that their full tuition is covered in those early college programs, those that are partnered with them. Students can apply, they can fill out the FAFSA form before they attend the early college program to see if they can get some kind of stipend for travel or textbooks or anything like that. But other than that, the fees are for the student to pay. Tuition is covered. So that's a little bit about the cost in terms of the program. On the back, just gives us some insight on numbers that for MVU specific. In the first year that it was rolled out, we had 5 students enrolled in the early college program. The next year was 1, last year was 12, and this year is 9. So you kind of whittle it down. It's about 10% of the senior class, depending on, it ranges every year differently. Some of the ways that we get the information out to students, so there's individual appointments with guidance counselors all the time. So if a student asks about it, or if it's a student that has maybe shown interest in dual enrollment classes prior to their junior year or within their junior year, that's an option to talk about. Teacher time sessions, we've already had 1 so far. We had 4 kids show up that showed interest in the early college program and want to know more about it. We have parent and student information nights. We've already held 1 this year. Presentations, I'm actually going to be going into the career exploration class this next Monday and the following Monday to see all students to present on both dual enrollment and early college. Handouts, they're always in guidance. We have them in each of our offices. We have them on the wall. Students and families can get them. I put out a resource table at parent-teacher conferences. There was also early college information there. And a lot of it is word of mouth. So we have students that will come to us and say, oh, my friend is doing an early college thing. Like, what is that about? And that really opens up the door to have further conversation and give them information on that. The other question that I think may be a misconception at times is, if I'm in an early college program, what am I taken out of in terms of scholarships or opportunities in my senior year? Really the only, and it's not a scholarship, it's an award. It's the Tyler Place Award. That is based, just their criteria is the GPA and class rank. And once you sign that contract to be in an early college program, because you're disenrolled, your rank is, you lose that rank. Essentially, to get your diploma at the end of the year through whatever setting high school you're in, you re-enroll at the end before graduation to get that diploma, if that makes sense. And then, just to point out, there are differences between an early college program and taking college classes early. For example, and I have 1 student right now, she's taking classes at UVM. This is not an early college program. They offer, through their continuing education program, half tuition costs to high school students. This particular student, we've had students in the past, go to other colleges like this that they can afford out-of-pocket expenses and they can pay for that. We don't promote that first because the early college program has specific partners and it's funded by the Agency of Education. So there's really a difference between taking classes early and the cost associated with that versus an early college program.
Heather, can you explain for the board the difference between early college and dual enrollment? Because I don't think those are things that most folks understand.
Yep, so dual enrollment is can be a variety of things. So every student, every high school student has access to 2 college vouchers. So this voucher could be for a class that maybe is taught at a high school. It's a concurrent class, so it's taught there by a faculty member who's certified through a college, and they can receive college credit not only being at the school, but also getting it through the college. So it's kind of, you can double dip that way. Or students have the vouchers and they can choose to take colleges even out, they could go to CCB if they wanted to after school and take a college class. They could do it online. I have a student right now who's doing a business class online, and she used her voucher to do that. You are eligible to use your vouchers junior and senior year, and then every student who's enrolled in a tech center program, they also have what's called a fast forward voucher, which is separate from the dual enrollment. So essentially, I have a student who's at the tech center right now. She's doing, she's using one of her vouchers there, but she also has 2 additional fast forward vouchers that was specific to the tech center and what they do in terms of the technical education.
So is a voucher basically equivalent to 1 course?
Yes. Yep, one 3 credit course. Yep.
Yeah.
Is it 2 total or 2 per year?
2 total. Throughout their high school career, they can get 2. The tech center is different with kind of their stipulations on that.
So I'm just curious, what do they do if I can understand the dual and all that kind of stuff, but if they decide to go to college and then they disenroll from here, what do they take? Like, don't they have any classes left to take in high school that they can do that?
So they have the contract for. Like, are you saying like when they're in the early college program? When they're in the early college program, so they sign a contract saying they have to be a full-time student there. So that is saying that you have to take a full schedule of classes. Most students will be able to like kind of meet their graduation requirements by even like the end of their first semester in that early college program. But they take a variety of classes, and this also gives them the opportunity to take some classes that they otherwise wouldn't have the opportunity to.
Okay, so they get credit, high school credit for colleges?
Yep. For example, let's say a senior is going to early college program, they need their full English class, if you need 4 years. Just using that as an example, you take an English class through the college, you receive your 3 college credits, and then you also can receive 1 credit through MVU.
Wow.
We recognize that.
That's
so.
a good deal.
I push in the back too.
When someone else was saying, I just want to follow up on this. So I'm a junior in high school, and I pretty well maxed out the credits I would need to graduate, or whatever. I guess we don't use credits anymore, or whatever.
Moving forward that way,
I go to college. If I'm lacking something in order to graduate from MVU, I have to take that in college? And I get an
During the early college
I
program.
get an MVU diploma?
Yes. And you also receive a college transcript at the same time.
And they graduate, they can graduate,
Yep.
So when I come back, I think I asked Julie the last time, the term disenroll would say today that you're no longer really affiliated with the school, but I just read. But do we count them when we do the state count for student enrollment? Because I thought I heard that we did.
We don't.
We don't. We don't.
So, and I think the biggest thing is that like I still meet with some of the students that are in the early college program.
That's good.
I know that that's not like, they're technically not an MVU student, but we still have them in Power School as college dual enrollment. So we still recognize that the fact that they're committing to this 1-year program, and then they're coming back to us to receive their diploma as well as fulfill their early college program year. So yes, I think the disenrolling, I think that's a really big word, and it's kind of scary to think about, but I don't necessarily view it as like all ties are cut. That's not, I mean, we still definitely try to keep and make sure they're in connection. Yes, we can't talk to their advisor unless they say, yes, you can talk to us. I mean, that's FERPA, but we still try to keep that conversation going and make sure they're taking everything they need. So if they fail that English class first semester, they need to make sure they're scheduling the second semester English class to receive that graduation requirement.
Now, the reason for my question is, even though they leave, the school still puts in some effort, some responsibility. Yeah, we can't count them as students.
We don't count them because they're not enrolled here, but then they re-enroll before graduation so they get their diploma.
They can still participate in sports here?
Yep.
They do what?
Still participate in sports?
Right, yeah, so it doesn't make sense to me that then we get no count for them. And I don't think that was the intent when we wrote the thing. That's not for us to determine here. I'm just trying to get information to find out, because we are still providing services.
But and Laura said it, it's the way our state colleges get money and the way schools get money are per full-time enrolled students. And the student can't be full-time enrolled in 2 institutions, even though one is college and one is here. We could, but they don't let us.
I'm just curious as I talk to legislators, because, even if it was a prorated thing, I mean, but anyway, thank you.
There was a question in the back.
I had a question, and then, I just was wondering when the deadline is that they have to make this decision to do early college.
So it depends on the partner school. So for example, CCV, kind of a rolling admission. I actually called, I had a student who's really interested, and I had called CCV and asked when they could submit an application. Right now they're not even accepting applications for like a first year student. That would be towards like after the first of the year, essentially. They said check back. So it's dependent on the school that they partner with. So.
This is just a curious question. Seems like it happened so long ago, but when we were writing our AGS proposal, we created an appendix E, which was a huge undertaking, probably one of the few things that the certification agreements audit, in fact, that are all correctly in their order, suggested that something that I can look at in future seen as a privilege, official students to accept exams, it's seen as a feeder program for struggling state colleges that are having competing colleges and more direct connection with the University of Vermont. So I was curious if you had time to read that and see the message that I strongly encourage you to read it. Because it's
I will.
basically talking exactly what you're describing at a bigger scale.
Gotcha. Thank you. That's great.
Mr. Chairman, I know that one of the older members, but I would appreciate knowing who this fine young lady is and what her job is.
Sorry. Sorry, I should have introduced myself. Tyler Megg is the Director of Guidance.
Director of what?
Guidance.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Yeah, in terms of calculating the GPA, is it going to be just what their GPA was at the end of their junior year when they felt high school?
Yep. When they re-enroll, those workers kind of go with those, yes.
The vouchers, the 2 vouchers that they receive, are they able to take a summer course instead of taking? Okay.
Yeah, we actually have a lot of students who do that just because sometimes it can be overwhelming within the school year, and if they want to attend that school, having more free time, I guess, they can balance that with work. Yeah, we have a lot of students that do that.
Any other questions?
Thank you
for your
very
time.
much.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So I think. No, it's okay.
So we'll move on to the athletic director update. John?
You can tell me you're a better student than his father.
Oh, I'm going to tell them that.
Thank you. My name is John Lummis, and I'm the Athletic and Activity Director here at Missisquoi for middle and high school. I'm just going to give you a fall season report. This year we had 301 fall athletes participate on 16 teams. This compares to 313 last season. The high school fall season started on Thursday, August 16th. Our high school athletes and parents were invited to a barbecue. On the 19th, Rick Farnham, a retired UVM athletic director, is a great resource that my coaches and myself use throughout the year. He presented to students and parents what the athletic experience is about, and also presented a hazing, harassment, and a bullying presentation. Later that evening, parents and players and coaches had team meetings. Rick was invited to our school back on Wednesday the 28th to present a hazing, harassment, and bullying presentation to our middle school students. And I also talked about expectations of academics and behavior prior to their first practice. Over the summer, the Richford Athletic Director and I, along with an activity event personnel from Jay Peak Resort, were able to organize a Jay Peak Soccer Jamboree, where 12 soccer teams from northern Vermont were able to play soccer on their turf fields, ride a tram, and use our water park. It was a great success for our soccer teams at the resort, and I have been in contact with Jay Peak to organize this event again, and we'll try to add a field hockey jamboree. This summer, the homecoming committee met several times to discuss the pep rally and homecoming week. Night games took place on September 16th to the 20th for all middle and high school teams. They all had night games. This year, we had a parade route that was changed to travel up Canada Street and end at the Swanton Police Department. This was a much safer route for our athletes, and we will continue to use this route in the future. I would like to thank the Swanton Police Department and Swanton Village trustees for their assistance in this wonderful event. Teams were then bused back to MVU for a dance and fireworks. This year, MVU was a host school at Hardack and St. Albans for the NVAC High School Cross Country Meet, where there were 556 runners from 19 schools participating, and our cross country team parents and did an amazing job at this race. Both high school and middle school teams had a fall sports awards night. Several of our athletes were recognized for making all-league and all-state teams. One of our cross-country runners qualified for New England's, and she will race this week in Connecticut. There were several athletes who were recognized as Athlete of the Week in the Messenger and County Courier. Our boys and girls soccer teams were the number 12 seeds, and they did upset the number 5 seeds in the tournament, however fell short in the quarterfinals. Our field hockey team won their quarterfinal, however fell short of their semifinal game an overall champion Windsor. Teams continue to raise money for their programs. A new fundraiser event that happened this fall was I organized with the help of our girls soccer and our JV football teams. We joined forces to work in an event that was held at Bombardier Park in Milton. Athletes had to set up tents, tables, chairs, inflatables, and volunteered in supervising the games at this barbecue that was held by Milan. This fall, we had a new athletic trainer, Evan Hansen, a graduate of UVM. He brings knowledge and compassion to our athletes. He performed 102 evaluations, including cuts, sprains, and strains. This is compared to 97 last year. At the same time, he also performed 144 treatments. This includes wrapping up ankles and rehab programs for our athletes. Winter signups have begun. There are presently 219 athletes participating on 15 middle and high school teams. I have a winter coaches meeting tomorrow. Rick Farnham and I will be working together with our winter coaches to talk about the following questions. What is a coach? Why do I coach? Why do I coach the way I do? What does it feel like to be coached by me? And how do I define success? Also, tomorrow night, I will have Steve Messier present to our coaches legal and ethical responsibilities of coaching. And also, coaches will participate in the CPR and AED training. The Vermont State Athletic Directors Association organizes a conference every year. I'm an active member in this organization. 8 MVU students yesterday and today, along with Mr. Palmer, participated in the Vermont Leadership Conference in Burlington. Many of these athletes will be taking part of our homecoming, pep rally, and athletic council committees. Recently, I met with the student. We have a student-run pep band here in Missisquoi, and I've had discussions with her on the type of music and their availability for the winter season. An update on the football program. There were many discussions with with my football coach and staff this past spring. We made a decision to move the team to a JV status, and it has paid off. There were 11 freshmen and 11 sophomores, 3 juniors and 4 seniors on the team. Our recommendation is to continue to stay at a JV status for another year. My coach and I travel to a statewide football meeting at Hartford High School next Wednesday night to present this to the football committee. Also this fall, a new baseball scoreboard was installed. The middle school baseball field has been greatly improved with the addition of 44 yards of ball field mixture on the field, the rebuilding of pitcher's mound, and the home plate. And once again, thank you for your continued support of MVU athletics and activities. And this shirt is was our quote yesterday and today at the conference was leadership has nothing to do with your position or authority, but has everything to do with your ability to influence others. So just let you know that we had a great time down in Burlington the last couple days with our student athletes, well represented, great kids that we bring, and future members that will be with us in our committee. So,
the 8 students that we brought are listed in the administrative report, so if you want to see who they are.
Questions?
I have to have a question because I've been bugging people to have John come here. So I do. John, you didn't indicate how the winter numbers compare with previous years. You did the fall numbers.
Well, winter numbers are still coming in.
Still coming in.
Yeah.
Okay.
Our middle school season starts next Monday. High school boys hockey, girls hockey starts on Wednesday, the 20th of November. And then all other sports, high school dance, cheer, indoor track, and basketball start on Monday, December 2nd. So I would imagine our numbers will be in the same range as well.
What you do, coaches, that's mandated? All the things you talked about, the coaches training, that's mandated?
Yep.
Everybody has to go through that?
Yep. Yep. Concussion training, AED training, coaching principles.
Of course, my favorite question is a supporter of football. There's people who moved it. Football race, but did that work out well by having money out of the budget, taking pressure off the...
It certainly did. And my football team and coaches are very, they thank you. I mean, to me, they're, John, this is wonderful. Thank you. Thank the board, the community members. But I also let you know that they also have participated in that fundraiser with our girls' soccer team. They did a cornhole tournament to help raise money. And with that money, all football players received a pair of shorts, a nice colored shirt. When they go to away games, they all look the same. They want to look professional. And they also got a pair, I think, of sweatpants as well. So.
So when are we gonna start volleyball?
You coach it, Don?
Jay's looking at me like.
You're coaching it. You're coaching it, Don.
Well, like birthday will get pop personally, see how they No, I read quite a bit about it. All of a sudden, it's really come into the media.
Yep.
I'm a sports now, but I see this bird has it, and almost losing here. Is it on our, even on our radar, or is it just
It's on our radar. I like to see more than just one or two kids come in and say, hey, I want to do volleyball. Well, okay, but where's the rest of your team?
Yeah.
You know, you give me the team, and we'll talk about, hiring a coach and doing what they need to do. So.
Are there any other sports that are on the radar?
On the radar, bass fishing is another one that's on the radar. Fall sport. What's that?
Wrestling?
Not on the radar. Not on the radar.
Does anybody have wrestling in this part of the state?
In Milton, they do. And I do know that at BFA St. Albans, if you are a wrestler, that you will go to Milton to train and have practice down there.
Now, if you have somebody who transferred in, let's say, and wrestled at another school, wants to continue, can you go to Milton?
Yep, we could. Yep.
Are there other schools with volleyball teams active?
Enosburg.
Just Enosburg?
Yep. In fact, one of our students here was talking about doing that. And then at the last minute decided not to. He wanted to work this fall instead. But Enosburg was more than willing to take it. And we were ready to start the paperwork for him to go up there. But as I said, last minute decided not to do it.
It's great for opportunities for the kids to go elsewhere
Mhm.
to get
Yep.
It's still close.
access.
Yep.
Yeah,
We have,
exactly.
well, this winter we have someone on the downhill skiing team that will participate on the BFA St. Albans team. And for the first time, a snowboarder. So there are opportunities. We do everything we can to get those kids to those schools. The responsibility, though, has to be on the parent to get them to those practices. That's always the tough part. You can't run buses, for a practice at Smugs or something. But
So your job gets easier and easier.
every day it gets easier, yeah.
Thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Can't wait to put it on the agenda.
Yeah. Any other questions? Jim, do you have a question? No. Perfect.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
John.
I don't know if Jen and Dan and Jay want to do any highlights from their administrative report or not.
We were just going to simply go over some of the upcoming events. John did one of them, which was the winter sports season will soon begin. And if you didn't hear him, boys and girls ice hockey will begin on November 20th. Middle school sports will begin on Monday, November 11th. And then all high school sports, such as basketball, indoor track, dance, cheerleading, will all begin on Monday, December 2nd. Also, Skit Night. The 50th annual Skit Night will take place next Thursday and Friday, which is November 14th and 15th in the Trahan Theater.
Do the faculty members have a skit?
I knew they were talking about getting one together, a small one. I think we did one 10 years ago, maybe. It was the last time on the 40th anniversary. So my acting skills haven't improved any, so I will not be participating. But
You don't have to be talented.
She's not.
It's more fun if you're not, really.
No. Oh, okay.
I was actually up there with Jim Daly. We were doing the sprinkler, if you remember, Jim. Remember that? We were doing the sprinkler. Just putting it out there. We were doing the sprinkler on the stage. Yeah.
I think you need to do it 50
Yeah.
because it was so impressive.
But obviously, if you have any questions concerning the administrative report, around the PSATs, we gave those on October 16th, as most everybody did, statewide, to all sophomores and juniors. We had parent and family conferences Thursday and Friday, October 17th and 18th. Some of the professional learning that's taken place, math best practices, social studies, science, NGSS. writing, ELA, PD, the Partnerships for Literacy and Learning. Of course, John touched upon the Athletic Leadership Conference that we just got back from today.
And refresh my memory, I lost it, but you were talking about different events. That's what old age does to you, but if I get it later in the meeting, I'll ask.
Okay.
When you were going through some of the things that were happening. I know. On the PSATs, does the school pay for the PSATs for every child?
Yes.
Okay, good. I thought they did, but that's what I wanted to confirm as we go with the budget. Good.
Yep.
Okay, we'll move on to central office updates.
So the first part I wanted to share with you is our enrollment data. And I put in our newsletter the data that we collect every October 1st, so this is a point in time. And I had asked the principals some of the principals had put it in their principal updates, most did not. And I said, we should collect it and send it all with our official numbers from October that will go into our state report for average daily membership. We have just over 1,900 students. And so I just wanted to make sure you saw our numbers. These are the children who attend pre-K in our partner site, so we pay tuition for them, and they go to any preschool that families want to send them to. Our preschool law, Act 166, has complete portability. And then in the elementary school counts, you will see the children that attend preschool in the buildings. So you have your grade level, so you have 3-year-olds, 4-year-olds, then kindergarten, and then grades 1 through 6. You see that Franklin has 134 students currently, pre-K through 6. Highgate has 209.
Just go back to Franklin a minute.
Yep.
So if you look at the pre-K, it looks pretty big.
We do.
And is that not all the 4-year-olds in Franklin, right?
No, some of them will likely go to a child care center, a pre-approved child care center, or stay home with family, absolutely.
So that 4-year-old cohort coming into Franklin is going to be
It's
pretty
good
large.
size.
Right, kindergarten next week.
Look at the second grade.
Yeah. Well, that's increased already, these numbers ebb and flow, as you know. Yeah. But that was how many kids there were in those grades on October 1st. That's how we collect the data. So Highgate is just under 300 at 297. I wanted to put these side by side, but whatever I was doing, it was not helping, so I had to put them on separate pages. Swanton, pre-K through 6, 624 students. MVU Middle School, 252 students, grades 7 and 8. And MVU High School, 571, 9 through 12. And as we talked about today, we have 9 students who are at early college, so that would be 9 more students had they been here.
Huh.
So I wanted to make sure, go ahead.
Looks like we're some growth if you look at these numbers.
Yeah, the kindergartners,
Yeah.
there's a lot of
If you
them.
look at MVU, unless a lot of students decide to transfer or continue, 158 freshmen.
We had
That's a good number.
a good number come in this year.
Wow.
When I look at the enrollment, student numbers and population increases across the state, there was an interactive map I think Vermont Digger had about a month ago. Franklin County generally is in the holding steady to increasing range. And we are increasing kids, but it's by 1%. I mean, it's small. But unlike other areas of the state, southern Vermont, for example, they're losing population pretty dramatically. We're sort of becoming the bedroom community for Chittenden County. Housing is still reasonable in Franklin County. So people are continuing to purchase in Swanton and Highgate and Franklin because it's not a bad commute. And so we are continuing to attract families, and we're pretty stable.
I think this information is especially important as it ties back to the email we received from Toby.
Yeah.
You know, looking at staffing with a principal and assistant principal at Highgate with under 300, and we have 2 principals at Swanton with over 600. So I think this is really important as we continue to think about equity and making sure all of our students are getting what they need, and that our staff is as well, and our administration.
But have we compared what Toby sent to these numbers?
That table is from several years ago. I think it's probably from the data that was, I'm not sure where it came from, but I looked through it. It's several years old.
Actually, I kind of compared them to see, because.
You did?
Yeah, and the numbers, they're larger now. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, you can see that right there.
Like, so Toby had, like, a total at Highgate, he had 270. Of course, he wasn't including
preschool.
The preschool.
Right.
So, but if you include the preschools, 28 plus 270 would be what?
Yeah.
298, right? So 297. So it's weird how things have kind of stayed the same. And then at Swanton, he had 600. He had 495. You add
Right.
75, you got 570, and there's actually 624. And then if you look at Franklin, he had 107. If you add 32, 139, 134. So it's pretty close when you add it. It just doesn't show the disparity.
I like this chart more.
Well, we look at it.
It's better to have real.
You know, this is this year. You know, every year we have, this will turn into average daily membership. So these are enrollment numbers. A preschool child is 0.47 of a child, right? It's
only
equalize
0.47
when you
child.
get into equalizing. So these things all end up weighted. But in terms of actual children in the building, this is what we have. It changes every October. And that becomes our official numbers. And of course, it changes week to week, day to day. Kids move in, kids move out. But it's important when we're having discussions about how many classes need to run, how many grades do we need to operate, et cetera. The administrative team looks at all of that whenever there are opportunities with retirements or changes. We examine all of that. Absolutely.
Is that taken into account with salaries? Like, so the union, that's all of MVSD teachers, right?
Yep, we're in negotiations this year for all
Is,
teachers.
You know, a teacher at Franklin is obviously going to have, if teaching second grade, 7 students, whereas a teacher at Swanton in second grade has upwards of 20. Is that at all taken into account with those negotiations?
Teacher who's an art teacher at a high school that has the same level of education and years of experience makes the same as a kindergarten teacher or a preschool teacher. So those kinds of things are not based on assignment. Every teacher's assignment is different for a variety of reasons. So if I'm a reading specialist, I may only have 3 children in front of me at a time, versus a high school science teacher who may have 25 students in their classroom 4 or 5 periods a day. They all have different roles and responsibilities, job challenges, job perks. But by contract, a teacher, those duties don't reflect. Hope I'm being succinct enough.
It's kind of hard, you know, as a school board member, we don't want to get into the weeds. That's what we rely on you all for. And yet, it's going to be really important that the administrators look at this when you do the budget, because we are getting a lot of, you know, questions from the community. So it would be helpful if you guys take the weeds.
Absolutely.
You know, and let us know.
You have to watch the flows too. So you could have an easy year this year as far as head count, but you know, in 2 years, the flow is going to be different.
So the second thing I wanted to highlight, and I don't know if Jeff wants to highlight it for me, is we are going to be raising the Abenaki flag at all of our elementary schools. It's been here at MVU for quite a long time, and we wanted to notify the board of that. And Jeff, why don't you jump in?
So this is something that we did at MVU several years ago, and I got to tell you, it's a big deal for the Abenaki community, the idea of raising the flag. MVU in particular was not always a school that people in the Abenaki community felt that it belonged to them. In the 1980s, the dropout rate was as high as 70%. So to put that in some kind of perspective, 70% of the heads of household were leaving school, dropping out of school. 50%. This is 1984, 50% before ninth grade. So this isn't like, you know, back in the 1800s or something. This is like the 1980s. That's all been turned on its head. And what we look at today is something very, very, very different. And it's remarkable, in fact. It's under a 3% dropout rate, you know, which is amazing. You know, one of the things I always say is there's no silver bullet to that. I wish there was, that we could just say there's a silver bullet. It just takes a lot of work. And a lot of that work comes from the people that are in here, like tonight. You know, like when we look at things like what we did with the field studies, the only way we're able to do things like that is if we have administrators who are with us on that. I can tell you, having been here a long, long time, what it used to be like if you mentioned something and you wanted to think about piloting something and the fight that it used to be, that it could be. That's no longer the case. So at MVU, field studies, Dan and Jay were always, from day one, really receptive to this. We've had some issues where we had to, you know, problem solve together because parents wanting their ninth grade kids to get in. We do field studies 10th grade through 12th grade. And we were dealing with a situation where ninth grade parent was like, I want my child in field studies. And we had to deal with it, and it's such a pleasure when you deal with it and you deal with colleagues who want to do what's best for kids. You know, and that's what we deal with. So in terms of the Abenaki community, again, if you look back to, again, the 1980s, the 1990s, what it was like, and then to see that within the last 10, 15 years, the change. You know, when you come in through the front doors, if you look straight back, do you ever see this, a mural? Well, that mural we put there for a reason, because many, many years ago when I was doing my doctoral work, it was something called participatory research. We were asking Abenaki parents, how are they interfacing with this place called MVU? And one of the things they said, if only we felt a sense of belonging. You know, always bring back to a sense of belonging. And what we did, it might sound a little lame now, but we thought if we have something, right? So we put up this, and it's a mural, so that people would come in and they'd see people to Dawnland. You come in and you see a totem here and a totem there. Well, now we've got programs. We've got Missisquoi outreach, great programs open to all kids, not just Abenaki, but all kids that are here to celebrate all children, and that's what's going on now. And so we did this about 4 years ago at MVU. It was really something. There are hundreds of Abenaki community members came out, and a lot of people asked me, reporters I remember asked me, why are people crying? You know, why do they have tears in their eyes? Because to them, to the Abenaki community members, especially a lot of the elders, the fact that the Abenaki flag was being raised here at MVU meant so much. These are parents who did not have particularly good experiences themselves, and yet they've said over and over again, we're going to see something different for our kids. If we stick to it and we tell our kids we want to see them, they buy it. They buy the idea that education is the great equalizer. That's what's going to transcend the socioeconomic conditions they find themselves in, and they believe it. So then it's up to us to deliver on that. So at MVU, Dennis Hill had come in. He wanted to know what would be some ways of ingratiating himself with the Abenaki, and I talked to him about that. And anyway, we did it. It was very, very moving, very successful. And then what came up a couple of months ago was that why haven't we done this in the local schools, the elementary schools? Just so you folks know, the Swan Highgate area, the ancestral homeland, this is the traditional homeland to the Missisquoi Abenaki. It's always been Swanton, Highgate, and by inference, we look at Franklin. And certainly in Sheldon as well. But Swan and Highgate, it made a lot of sense. So it made sense in terms of, if we're doing this at the high school, and it meant so much, what about bringing it to the elementary schools? So it was something the tribe asked me about. Again, it was nice that I could go to colleagues like Dina and Joyce and Pat Harnett and say, what about it? And they were nothing other than very, very supportive. To have Julie Regenball, who's like, well, what can we do to make it easier? That's not the way it was here. So you need to know that and take it back yourselves, because it wasn't like that. Everything might have been a struggle. Something like this, something like the raising of a flag, it would have been like, I don't know, 8 or 9 school board meetings, not one. I mean, so we've come a long way. So what we want to do is on November 18th, the month of November is Native Appreciation Month. So we'd like to do it on Native American Appreciation Month, November 18th, which is a Monday. We're going to start in Swan with the elementary school, and then the central school, and then we're going to move up to Highgate, and then Franklin. We've got kids from our after-school program, the Circle of Courage, who are going to be performing. They'll be drumming, and they'll be performing, and then we do the flag raising, and that's basically it. And yet, in that little 10 minutes or 15 minutes, it packs a wallop, because it really says to the Abenaki that, yeah, this is their place. Just as it's everyone else's place, this is where we all want to see our children succeed. And I think that's really what it's about. So if you've got questions about flag raising, everyone is invited to this. I mean, and I think it would be great if any of you, had the opportunity to come out. It would be really nice. Yeah. Sorry.
No, Terry wanted to ask
Here's what time you're going to do all this.
Yeah. Okay. So it's going to start. Dina, what time? We're going to start at 8:30. Yeah, we don't. But we'll get the word out. We'll get the word out. It's going to start in Swanton, probably 8:30. We're going to. Yeah, and then we'll move up. So in your respective communities, it would be great for those of you from Swanton, then Highgate, Franklin, and it's kind of a nice way to bring the consolidation, right? And that's what it's all about. Real quickly, one of the other things, when we had Nate and Jamie here, and it was so good to have field studies, I want to encourage you folks to come and see what's going on with field studies. Come and see what's going on with so many things at MVU, at all the schools, because people really feel good when they have folks coming in. They're in the J-Pod, and a lot of times they feel like they're in the middle of nowhere. People just don't get back there. And when you're as busy as everyone is, I don't get down there as much as I come to MVU almost every day. I don't get over there, and yet I need to. I want to. It's something you feel good. You find yourself saying, yeah, this is why I do what I do. This is why you do what you do as school board members. So to do that for field studies, we have a program here, the Connect program. You've got to go over to St. Anne's. But when you go over there, you're going to see some really special stuff going on. And I think, Tanya, wouldn't it be that people over there would love to see? They would. I mean, they would love to see. And just a plug for us, Circle of Courage. We've got 52 kids this year, the most youngsters we've ever had. And when I say 52 youngsters coming every Monday, Wednesday, Friday to the Circle of Courage program, free of charge, kids come from 3 to 5:30, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and it's a remarkable experience. This is for everybody. So half the kids are Abenaki, the rest are non-Abenaki. This is a celebration of our kids. So it's not us, them. This is all of our kids. So I know for the staff over there, they'd love to see people come over. And it's open door policies. I mean, I think it's open door policies pretty much wherever you come around here. I mean, we really want to open it up. And I know how good it makes folks feel when they think, oh, a school board member came in and saw me. So I just invite you to do that. If there's no other questions, or are there any about the flag raising? This is good stuff, and it's also symbolically, it's real important. It says that, there have been issues, there have been struggles, but I think we're at a point now where we're really coming together in the name of kids, and that's what it's all about for any of us. So we'll get more word out on the 18th, and stay tuned. That's it? Sure. Put it, guys, right?
I have one question. Where
Yeah.
does the Circle of Courage meet these days?
So the Circle of Courage is in the old Swan Central School?
Yes.
Yeah, so you know, yeah. So near the town clerk's office, yeah, it's the old school.
And I'd like to put a plug. My oldest son has attended the last 2 years, and my youngest will next year when he's eligible. And it's been a fantastic experience for them, just learning about the Abenaki culture and the art show that they put on at the end of the year with all of the projects they've been working on from the start. And Brenda is fantastic, and just every year so far she gets choked up every time talking about it, and it really speaks to just how important it is. And I love the fact that we are able to do a very small thing by raising a flag, but I'm very happy that we're able to
Well,
do that.
thank you, that's great, thank you very much for that. I'll pass it on to Brenda. Dina?
I just wanted to add too, just speaking of Brenda, she's been coming in the last 2 years when we do our Extension Thursday program at school, and that's with our community partners, and she has been coming in, and these kids are mesmerized by what she has to share, the artifacts, and that's for all of our kids. So the fact that she comes in almost every Thursday to meet with our grade level of kids is pretty phenomenal too. So she's a busy lady. But
You know, it was interesting. We were having a problem with transportation, and Grand Avenue said to me 2 days before we started, Jeff, we're having major problems with help, and we're not sure how we're going to transport the kids. And I said, we've signed up 52 kids. What do you mean you don't know how this is going to be done? And then, as it turns out, they call me back, and they say, Mike Begnage and Diane, that drivers have been offering to volunteer because one driver had a grandson who'd gone to Circle years ago, and he thought it was so good, he wanted to see other kids get involved. And we started seeing people come forward whose grandchildren had been involved, and it had been a really good thing several years ago, and they wanted to see, you know, their spouses, kids, and grandchildren take advantage. So it's great, and like I said, it's for all kids. You know, it really is. So thank you. All right, good.
Thank you. How about we have a motion to support for raising the Abenaki flag?
I would make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
Only why did it take us so long?
It's a good thing to do.
Right. All those in favor of supporting raising the Abenaki flag, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 8-0. Thank you, Jeff. On to central office admin updates.
So I think the only central office update we're going to do is a little video. Early Childhood is going to spotlight each of the early childhood programs in each school. And since we're going to Franklin the second half of this month, there's a little video that Franklin put on. We'll do one for each school. And I want to see if I can, oh look, it's big now. Let's hope this works. So Wendy, any teeing up or anything that you need to share? It's only 3 minutes.
I just want to
and
give
40
credit to the Franklin teacher and support staff of the early childhood program. I left it up to each program to be thinking about how they would like to communicate with the board and the community about the program, and they put this together. So you'll be visiting there later this month. Swing by the early childhood program, take a peek around. Lots going on.
Sorry about the sound.
When you cry, be sure to dry your eyes, 'cause better days are sure to come. And when you smile, be sure to smile wide, and don't let them know that they have won. And when you walk with pride, don't show the hurt inside, because the pain will soon be gone. When you dream big, as big as the ocean. 'Cause when you dream it might come true. When you dream big. But when you laugh, be sure to laugh out loud, 'cause it will carry the Set all your cares away. And when you see the beauty all around and in yourself, it will help you feel okay. And when you pray for strength, that you help you carry on when the troubles come your way. And when you dream big, as big as the ocean blue. When you dream it might come true. When you dream big. When your life beats away, now, is it carry all your cares away? When you see beauty all around and in yourself, it will help you feel okay. When you pray for strength to help you carry on when the troubles come your way. When you dream big, as big as the ocean blue. 'Cause when you dream it might come true. When you dream big. When you dream big, as big as the ocean blue. 'Cause when you dream it might come true. When you dream big.
Look for that last slide. That is the last page of the Vermont Early Learning Standards. You can find it online, and it's a nice representation. We have some, I think, maybe administrators at the door saying the children are just playing, but all the thought bubbles around the room show what intentional play can provide children for learning opportunities. So thanks again to Franklin. I enjoy going there. Thanks.
Thank you. It's wonderful. As always, you have some updates in the newsletter. If you have any questions, feel free to email any of those administrators. And we knew we were going to go long today, so that's all we have.
One question on special education, how are our numbers compared to previous years? Number of students we're serving, are we up, down, or?
They're pretty consistent. Well, of course, they're down, minus about 50 because we take the Sheldon out, right?
Yes.
But they're pretty consistent over time. I think in the past few years it's been like 380 or 350. 350 to 380. I'm just
So no significant decreases or increases?
We've taken out the Sheldon numbers, yeah.
We're at 330 right now.
Right. So it's about 50, so right around
It's about
380.
17%.
Okay, on to new business, our school choice policy draft.
So I wanted to thank those of you that have submitted your input into the draft we have. I did make copies of draft 2. Of course. Steve. That's mine this way. They're just single pages, so.
Oh, they're the same thing.
I didn't put procedures on there, I wanted to just focus on the draft of the policy. I don't know. I asked a lot. Let me see if I can find. So, for those that did give input, as we discussed last time, this draft 1 was based on the Champlain Valley School District's policy. Changed a little bit of the language. Last time we talked about transportation and we talked about siblings, so I made some changes based on that input. And I just wanted to sort of go through and show the pie charts of each. Like the first was just about the policy statement itself, which was the Missisquoi Valley School District places student in the district's elementary school. Question I asked in your feedback was around that policy statement generally. We went in this direction over some more more closed versions that some towns had. Some merged districts basically said no school choice unless there's an emergency, right? And we talked about that, and you were looking for something closer in this direction. But it looks like you have a little bit that isn't quite sure about that, so I thought we should start there.
Julie, can I first ask who this was sent out to?
Board and administrator. Because it's a board policy, but I know you want input.
14 is more than we have, so I was just wondering who the
Absolutely.
additional group was.
It's not everybody's given input yet.
Terry?
My concern was just that it says that there's a policy to offer students the option to enroll in the school of choice within the district. To me, that sounds like, I get it. If I want my kids to go anywhere, I ask and I should be able to do it. It's open, it should be allowed. That's the only reason I wanted to talk about it sometime. I know that then you follow up with processes, but still.
The word, you agree with that?
I agree with Jerry.
Would putting a qualifying word like limited in there
somehow
help it?
Well,
Somehow we gotta qualify.
You just spoke about certain situations or.
It's not really an option to apply to.
Yeah, they can request it.
Yes.
Yes, that's
yeah.
it.
Request enrollment
Request.
in a school of choice.
Okay. So that's a qualifier that we need to put into that opening statement. Is that, I mean, I'm straw polling here, but I see nodding heads. Does anybody greatly disagree with that?
No, we're saying just to add the word request, the option to request to.
Right.
It says option to enroll, so I'm gonna qualify them. Okay.
Do we want to put the qualify in there also? Request and qualify?
Or, I mean,
No.
I'm
No.
qualifying that option to enroll
Okay.
with some sort of statement, like
Okay.
limited, an application to enroll, or that kind of.
Mhm.
Yeah, that's helpful.
Drew, I think we talked about this briefly last time, and maybe, I don't know where it goes, but I think it's great the superintendent wants to handle this, or superintendents want to handle this, but I think people should be aware that they can't appeal it, right?
So,
Or do you
one of
not
the
want-
questions, Chris and I were talking about this last week. All of the policies I've seen around the state have it as a superintendent process. If you feel, in almost every single one, I think it was 9 out of 10 that I looked at, all said the superintendent's decision is final. However, there's always the caveat, as Devin pointed out, and one of them was explicit, that should you feel that the superintendent misapplied the policy in some way, then you have an opportunity to apply it for it.
I just think we need to decide what we're gonna do and then make people aware of it.
Yeah.
The one thing I don't want to see happen is we don't mention it, and then somebody comes, we have this debate, and some of us say, well, it's supposed to. And before we put policy, it should be very clear. Because most policies can be appealed, right?
Yes, absolutely. If somebody, that they'd be appealing the misapplication of the policy.
Yeah, we have to have the grounds for what the appeal is, not just because you weren't happy.
Yes. I didn't like the decision, therefore I'm going,
Can you go back?
absolutely.
So I'm looking at the last sentence on that bullet there. I guess it leaves it open for, it's kind of gray to me. You're talking about the needs of students, or you're talking about special needs? Are you talking about what they're pursuing as a need? Like if there's something offered in the school that the parent or child feels as if they need,
It's, as a policy statement, I think it's purposely void, and this was taken right from the Champlain Valley's statement. I think that when you're looking at, say, a 5th grade classroom, and how many students are in that grade, you're not just looking at numbers. You're also looking at other factors. Would you have to, is there a classroom that has maybe space in it, but they have a lot of intense needs in that classroom, so they don't want 10 more kids in that grade level? So, I mean, there's more than just numbers to be weighed. It's mostly numbers, but other factors do have to be considered. And sometimes this, you have to be blind in your accepting of students, right? So you can't say, well, Jen has to have these different supports with her, and we don't want to pay for that or move people, so we're not having Jen come. We can't do that, but we can look at whether we consider a classroom to be at capacity or not, based on the resources that are currently there. The purpose of these policies is to be flexible and to give some choice, but not to have to restaff a school. Mm-hmm. That's where that language comes from, and it's from another policy. It's been in place for maybe 3 years. I think it's pretty good language, but you're right, it's vague. I think it's purposely vague. So the guideline section, which are all the bullets, I asked for each one. Some of them I'm not sure whether it's just a question about what it means or not, so I wanted to be really intentional in asking each one. The first bullet was request to attend a school in another town within the MVSD be granted based on space availability. I did have one person who said, well, above in that sentence you mentioned, Eric, it says space, need, and resources. Do we bring that down to that sentence as well? I thought that was good feedback. And based on what you just said, maybe I think that's an important thing to put in there.
Who's in the audience for the 4 student responses? Is it school board members?
School board members and administrators.
Okay.
I'm trying to make contemporaneous notes here. So the next one was, there was a no in there as well. Regardless of residence, every family will have the opportunity to transfer enrollment to any grade level appropriate school, operated by the district, Franklin, Highgate, or Swanton. This is right out of Champlain Valley's. I don't know if we want to wordsmith, if there's some lack of clarity in here, so I'm not sure if we have a question.
It needs another qualifier.
Qualifier.
Request. Just because you want to do it doesn't mean you get to do it.
Right.
Every family will have the opportunity to apply.
To apply or request to transfer.
Request
Okay.
transfer.
All right, you're right, it's,
I can't believe they get away with not having that. Do they just give everybody?
they have bigger schools too, so maybe it's not an issue. Okay, so that clarifies those questions for me, thank you. Transportation, everybody agreed, that was the one we talked about before. It must have, there's an ellipse in there that I don't understand how that got there. An existing bus, where's the policy? Oh, okay. For students choosing to attend school in the neighboring town, transportation is not provided by the MVSD unless the student can access an existing bus stop and there is room on the bus.
I had a question. I'm sorry, I didn't ask this.
Okay.
So who's responsible for determining if there's room on the bus?
administration, you know, it would be a conversation.
Okay.
We'd have to find out, I mean, in the end, I would probably make the decision, but I'd talk to the principal and the bus.
Okay.
Now, I know it's not related to this policy, but I think we have to be careful with the statement there that we provided for students attending school in Lawrencetown residents. Because in Swanton, we do not transfer all students.
Oh, that's true.
If you live a certain distance within a
Right.
certain radius of the school, you do not get transportation. Now, how many people go from that to look at this? But if I was looking at this, I go,
You're right.
hey,
Yes, you
you
got
gotta
the,
start picking up the other 50 kids in the village.
Right.
that's perfect. Thank you for catching that. I will, make a change in there.
So if they live in the village, they don't have
People, because I know it because I just had a family move in one of my rentals, and the kids are so excited they're riding the bus now. Last year, they probably 3 houses closer to the school and had to walk.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, it's so many blocks out, you have to walk. I forgot. So the next one was, I changed younger siblings will automatically be in, or however we had that word in, to given priority in the school choice process. And I saw that in a lot of the other policies. And in the procedures, it really looks like, you know, you get a bunch of requests. One of the first things you do is you look at existing siblings and you try and place those students first. And then you go into a lottery.
So I guess my question is, because, say, one child's got a older brother or sister that's already enrolled, and now they're given the priority, so they automatically get enrolled. Does that bump somebody that's in a class that's full?
So we wouldn't bump anybody out, right? So it would still be down to the size of the class and the resources in the building as to how many slots we felt comfortable. So even before we're looking at applications, we've decided we really only can handle 3 kids in 3rd grade in this building, or whatever it is. And that's through looking at numbers and talking with administration. And planning for a buffer too, because kids move in and out quite a lot. So we do that, then we would look at the applications of children who have an existing sibling, and they would be placed first in a given priority. Bless you. And then you'd look at the rest, say there were 3 slots in 3rd grade, one of them went to a sibling. If there were just 2 more requests, then they get in. If there were 4 more requests or 5 more requests, we were going to have a lottery anyway. So we would do a lottery with those other students after the sibling priority. So that's, and really, if there's really no room for a sibling, what priority means that's different than we had it in the last version is that you'd call the parent and you'd say, look, you know, Timmy can absolutely come, but Susie, we just really don't have room at that grade level. You're welcome to reapply again. You're welcome to, you know, have one kid come and not the other. And you leave it to the parents, and the parent has that choice of what they want to do. And it doesn't happen, from superintendents I've talked to, it doesn't really happen very often.
That whole word priority is a big word.
It is.
I have a hard time with that.
If you don't want siblings to have a priority, I mean, you talked
I
at length
agree with
about
Eric
this.
on it. I know we did.
No, but you didn't come to consensus, that's why I want to talk about it again.
It still bothers me a little, and I'm trying to think of why, and I think part of it is the socialist in me, because it's like a heritage kind of thing. You know, you can get into the school because your grandfather went there, or whatever it is. It's like, you get first pick because your family has been approved. There's just something about that.
Well, then going back to what Megan said about another comment earlier, is that justification, I mean, it has to be a process, not just a priority.
And I guess to argue the other extreme, I think there's a lot of logistical challenges to splitting a family. So
I get that too. I understand.
I would maybe argue priority. I would argue towards the automatic acceptance of the new child moving in, just so that it makes sense. I'd hate to see them have to transfer the other one out or have to deal with
But if they're that set on their kids going to a certain school, they
Yeah.
need to move, like,
Yeah. That's the
you,
way it
you
used to be.
purchased a home, but, I mean, looking at the schools is part of that, and
It's only one part, though. I mean, it is. Very
yeah, I
small.
mean,
You know, not
absolutely,
everybody
but
can
it's
just
not
move.
like we're in a huge area where, I don't know, moving from Swanton to Highgate is going to all of a sudden make the parents' commute to work in Burlington unbearable. I don't know, I feel strongly
Well,
about
why
that.
we talk, if we could, instead of just whether we want it or don't want it, why would the children want to, I mean, what are the benefits of having siblings in the same school? That would help me to know that, versus what's not beneficial about having kids in the same school?
Well, the benefit would be to the family,
What's the
bringing
benefit,
2 kids
though?
at a time, or
I'm
3 kids, or 4
asking this
kids.
seriously,
Yeah.
as educators, if you guys could let me know, what are the benefits to the family?
I think what I hear over, oh, please, you go first.
I have children in multiple schools right now, just because I have some here and I have some in an elementary school. And it's not a hardship, but it is a challenge to make concerts, to make anything that they do after school, because the schedules overlap. There's been times where we've had to split up, and I'll go to one event and my wife will go to another event. We're fortunate to have some flexibility in our schedule so we can do things like that. To get grandparents, aunts, uncles that want to come to concerts, you know. My children have a couple uncles and aunts that live close but not that close, so they can't come to every concert when there are multiple like that. From the family standpoint, and then just the logistics of every day bringing our kids to school, you know, fortunately, we bring them all to Highgate and then they ride a bus here. But if I had multiple kids in multiple schools and I got to transport them to, that's a lot of time.
And if they're all involved in sports, it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
No, that's good to hear. Those are the kinds of things I was wondering.
Or if you have them, some are in sports, some are in other activities, and then trying to make everything become.
So we'll always have 2 schools, because the high school is going to be different from any of the elementary
Right.
school. But you're saying that when you're in elementary school, it makes it harder to have one in this elementary and one in that.
For a variety of reasons, we've had families who have had, maybe parents are separated or divorced, and one parent lives in one community, one in another, and for whatever reason, the fit for one child was here, the fit for another child was there, and they choose to do it and they make it work. It's difficult. We certainly have heard from families that it's important to them that they have a school, that's their home school. And most of the policies that I've seen with this kind of more open choice model have some kind of prioritization for siblings. Some are just like come one, come all, some are just priority, but it seems to be an issue.
So from parental, it makes total sense that they have priority. And some might even say automatic, others might say priority. What about from an educational standpoint?
Like other benefits to having your sibling in the
Yeah,
same
that's
school.
from an educational standpoint, maybe the elementary principals or something, because
I think it's relationships with families, if you establish these relationships as a student comes in, siblings, those type of things, I think it's really strong. And as long as it's a positive environment.
Okay, so my opinion has just changed. I would say yes to give priority.
Jen, I almost cut you off, I apologize.
I guess I'm kind of either way on both of them, so I can look at it as, when it comes to sports, if you have a middle schooler and a high schooler, your schedules are going to conflict. So you're going to face that anyways when your child comes from Highgate or Swanton or Franklin, starting off in the 7th and 8th grade here at MVU, and then if you already have one that's in 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th, if they play sports, if they have concerts, whether it be music or whatever that they're doing, you're going to have a conflict. And you have to juggle that.
I hear that because I have one in each. I have one in high school,
and
one
I've
middle
done
school, one
that
elementary.
for
so,
4 kids. I'm still doing it,
Yep.
and it's like you've got to kind of split, as parents, you got to split, or as a family split, and one does one, and one does the other. So for me, the whole sports thing and activities thing doesn't give an excuse. And then when I think of the fact of, is it really, is it the parent that wants the kids all together? Or is the kid having any choice in this? Maybe that kid doesn't want to be in that same school. Maybe their friends are actually from the town they're in and they want to be there. So it's kind of like a conflict of that. Is it the parent that wants it, or is it the kid that wants it? Is the kid actually going to be happy? And then you have another scenario is if I lived in Franklin, I moved to Highgate. My child isn't doing well in Highgate, can't seem to adapt and get along with other kids, so forth and so on. And I want to go back to the other school, so I applied to do that, but there's no room there because a family already got the privilege of being there.
Oh, that a sibling got.
Yeah, like a sibling situation already got priority and took up those spots. So now my child, because yes, we did choose to move, which then you have the other thing of it was your choice to move, fall into play. So it's, I'm kind of torn with, I get this, but then I get this side of it as well.
Can we just leave it out of it?
Can we
And
just
allow
change
them
that
all to
word
make the
priority?
decision?
Can we change the word priority to consideration?
I would feel better with the word priority being out there, just because I think there's so many different scenarios to it.
Well, we
I think the whole thing goes away
consideration,
if you're
yeah.
not doing priority.
Yeah, I would agree.
Consideration?
Because they're
Wow,
giving
everybody was saying
consideration
no.
anyway.
Yeah.
Right, the whole thing goes away. if you don't-
And you let you let the superintendent who's making the choice,
Well, that's a
in
strong
case there
word.
is one of those situations.
All right, so we've gone from automatically in to priority to consideration, which is perfectly fine because.
Well, no.
I mean, those are the discussions.
Not
Once we
everybody
know,
agrees. But
uh,
I want to see, this is where you've gone as a board, and this is the part of the policy that's really yours,
This is
right?
the part that's-
You know, so I want it to capture the consensus of the group. Dan?
One of the things that I often hear from parents, being the middle school principal, is that they need their child home to take care of a younger sibling. And so have you take that into consideration as well. And is that sometimes you'll need an older sibling to take care of a younger sibling or ride the bus with a younger sibling to make sure that everything goes smooth in that regard. So, we do have a lot of 7th graders who take care of younger siblings and they can't stay after school because they need to go home because there's not a parent there. So that might be a consideration as to why you might give a priority for a younger sibling to be there.
But then again, they're a 7th or an 8th grader. Who's going to say that they're going to get off the bus at the same time as a Swanton K through 6th grader to be able to be there on time to watch their younger sibling?
Right.
I go back to if it's that important for having
You still have to state your case.
having your older child take care of your younger child. Well, I just feel like that then.
Someone open doors.
Yeah.
And do what?
Someone open doors.
Circle of courage. The circle of courage, or
But I'm also referring to like a 6th grader, like a 6th grader having to take care of a younger sibling.
I guess as a board member, the one thing I would like to see is that we get a policy.
Yeah.
6th grade.
It's not gonna be perfect. We're gonna learn a lot in the first couple of years, and it's a policy, you can revise it. So, I personally don't care because I have very definite views on this. It doesn't make any difference in my role. But I'm just saying that it's one of those policies where no matter how many times you come here, how many times we discuss it, we're gonna miss something. And about 2 years out, we're gonna say, why did you do that? So,
I know Maple Run changed theirs twice since, so they've made tweaks to it every year.
Yeah, so, because I think we have a responsibility to let the public know that we have a policy. And then we'll see how much it's used. Because we could be debating this in May.
Well, should we see if
Used or abused.
should we see if this is the only thing we disagree on so far? Is there other parts of the policy?
Well, let's do a quick straw poll on, see if we even need to carry this along. Who would like to see the priorities stay in as an option in one of the bullets, and then we'll ask who would like to see it go away. So first, we would like to see the priority stated. So 3, and then would like to see it go away. 3. Well, that was a pointless.
There was another option.
What's the other
We
option?
said consideration. We
Yes.
said-
But I feel that's the same.
Or we said just take it out. Yeah, there was-
Yeah, we'll take it out. yeah.
Okay, so go away.
Peter's not
Oh,
here.
no, I don't want to. Straw poll.
Well, actually, I think it because you want.
I'm not sure what I,
Because
I'm really
given
torn.
his comments at the last meeting, I don't want to vote for him or speak for him, but his comments were pretty strong towards keeping siblings in the same school.
That's right.
That's right, yeah.
what are we talking about?
You did talk
Peter
about
Parent.
it.
Oh.
Quite a bit.
I like the idea of keeping them in the same school. I just think that the consideration is going to happen later. I don't think we need that statement anymore. I think that educators are going to make these decisions, and everything you guys have said, educators would give consideration in every case that they could to siblings, based on relationships, based on what you know about after-school activities.
Needs.
And so it's in there. That's why I would say take it out, not because I don't want them to have priority or to have consideration, but because I think you all will know that.
At least
based
if
on
it's
your
in there, it
educators.
covers it.
Huh?
And this feels like an important enough one to me that it should be at that policy level rather than procedural level. I mean, I think that's the debate to have, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
So when I say take it out, I don't mean take it out. I just mean, I don't think it needs to be in there. So I don't know how that affects our straw poll.
Well, we're kind of a draw, so we'll move on and see if this is the only
So how many people voted? 6 people?
6. It was 3-3.
Well, 7, Terry's, I think.
You didn't vote? What would you have said?
I would have gotten in this mess in the first place.
What do you mean? You're in it. You're in it, you're here. What do you mean by that? You gotta tell
I
us.
don't know. You know, the thing is, this is over 50 years in education, this is one of those policies are coming lecture.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Fair to everybody. You know, I really respect the people from Franklin, and I've heard Peter talk, and I hear Devin, I have a lot of respect for them. But you know, I can see all kinds of hypotheticals where we're gonna get in trouble with this policy. Because all of a sudden, Swan's gonna get a big kindergarten, and we've got other kids coming to kindergarten that we promised, when the numbers keep growing. I mean, I don't know, so I just should stay out of this fight, I really should. Because all I wanna see is a policy, and let you people decide what it is.
So you don't want to be part of the board right now?
I'm
Yeah,
part of
that's
the
what
board.
it kinda sounds like.
Yeah, I want to be part of the board, I want to watch what the board comes up with, and I'll support whatever.
Well, we're at a tie, so you got yourself into a pickle.
Well, no, you're not going to do it.
Yes, I did.
So what is it now?
I said I agree that they should be given consideration and that we should leave it up to the administrators to decide
That wasn't the
how to do it.
request.
That's taking it out.
So I was taking it out. So 4 taking it out, and 3 leaving it.
4 leaving it in if we count Peter.
We
Peter, he's not
can't-
here.
he's
Well, we're
here.
not, I mean, we're not.
I'm not gonna
voting either.
speak for him.
We're doing a straw poll.
Right.
Oh, I thought we were voting.
No, we're doing a straw poll.
poll.
Okay, so I got another meeting to think about.
Well, our-
Only if
our-
you want to wait another meeting.
Our
We
hope
voted
is that
on
we
it, right?
finish this tonight, and next meeting, we can have the first reading of it after we've, because we worked on the draft, this will be the second meeting.
Let me just ask you a question. As a superintendent, would most superintendents give siblings the priority if they could?
Yes.
If they
But I
could?
do agree with Devin, I'm sorry to say yes to both sides of the coin. I think some statement about siblings is at the level of policy. How you do it as the superintendent and administrative team is more procedural. Most things, there's a thing in here about preschool I put in there. I mean, we could take that out. It wouldn't matter because there's laws about it. This one, I think it's more of the will of the board. So do you want me to give priority to siblings or consideration to siblings, then put it in the policy. If you want it to be dependent on the applications in front of me, and some you would give priority, some you wouldn't, then don't have it. You know,
But I'd be willing to have it if we add it where feasible. priority will be given to students.
Or case by case.
When feasible, priority will be given to students.
Yeah, but if you go case by case, that's
not
basically applying to
But-
this whole policy.
You don't like, we wouldn't be, I mean, to me,
Well, what if it was
whenever
something-
feasible.
Like, if,
Okay, I'm voting the way Devin does. I'm voting with you, Devin. You're a good man and you thought this through. You have young children. I don't, so.
Megan was in the middle of talking.
that was awesome, thanks for that, men.
Okay, Megan.
No,
I heard the superintendent say she really would like a decision tonight, right? So I'm
Well, I'd really like us to be as close as possible. I can send out the final to you all in enough time so that we can have a first reading. You can always tweak something on a first reading to a formal adoption at the next meeting after that, but you want the substance of the policy to be finished before you bring it to a first reading.
So if you do a straw poll, I'm going to vote to keep it in.
At this point, I think we'll move on. We'll let it percolate on this and we'll come back to it at the end. So let's move on to the other questions. We'll see if we can get through those first.
So once accepted, students do not need to reapply for continued enrollment in their school of choice. Students may remain until transitioning to grade 7. I saw one policy out there that had you apply every year, which when you spoke last time about this, you felt like, and the administrative team really felt, once you make a choice, we'd like it to be your home school. There could be extenuating circumstances, but we'd really like it to be your home school and not to have to apply every year. It's disruptive to kids, and it's hard for planning. So I don't know if it was one or two, probably two folks were thinking it might need more discussion. Moving on.
Yeah.
School choice doesn't apply to non-resident students.
Should it be not, like, non-MVSD students?
Okay, I'll just reword that to make it clear. Students who are not residents of the district.
So what does that look like in practice then? When they initially say, I'd like to tuition into MVSD, do they have any say in where they land or are they placed?
Oh, that would be a different policy, which we need to bring to the board, which is the tuition of non-resident pupils.
So once they're so this would cover them once they're here though, right?
No.
Well, that
You
this
haven't
statement
developed
would
the
say they
policy.
don't-
This policy would say, this policy only applies to people who reside in Franklin, Highgate, and Swanton.
Okay.
If you live in St. Albans town and you want your child to come to Swanton for some reason, you would apply to do that, to pay tuition, and we would accept those students much less easily, potentially, than our students in their choice process.
So once they're here, we're saying now they don't have the choice to move
They
around
wouldn't be
within
able
the
to bounce
district?
around. They pick a school and pay tuition to it. If that's your policy. You
Once
don't
they
have a
get it,
policy
could they
yet.
stay? Let's say somebody wanted a 4th grader to come to Swanton, and we decide that's okay. Does that mean they then can stay grades 5 and 6? Or do they have to reapply?
They'd have to pay tuition every year.
Right. Or
Yes.
do they have to reapply to pay tuition? Or would
That,
they
I've
stay?
never seen anyone do that. Typically, and I've certainly
That
been
doesn't mean we
familiar
should
with,
address it because it could.
but that would be a different policy.
High school. And we might be over passages.
That's true, so when you look at that policy, you can consider that.
That's another policy, so we'll.
Yeah.
But I will clarify non-resident students should be
That would be great.
non-residents of the MVSD district. Oh, no. Sorry, I'm very cognizant. Policy not applying to preschool age students. I already had one person ask me about that. Preschool already has in the law portability. So if I live in Swanton, I can send my kid to building, I forget the name of the different, a private provider. I can send my child to any of my in-district, if Franklin Highgate. But what you want to make sure, whether it's in policy or the procedures, is that if I go to preschool in Highgate, that doesn't mean I'm in. It's kindergarten and up, you would have to apply. Preschool is its own separate law about school choice, essentially.
So in preschool, there's already more flexibility than what this policy
Yeah.
would do. They
Do they have
can
to provide-
swap
The
and
law
correct
made
it.
it very flexible.
Do they have to provide their own transportation?
Yes.
Yeah.
What Montclair, you can take a train.
Anywhere they can take their kid in?
Anywhere that's pre-qualified.
Pre-qualified.
Yes.
Okay. So that's good.
Yeah.
So I put it in the policy because where I was before, there was a big confusion about this, and it doesn't have to be, but I think it makes it clear for families. This is the one where I think, Jen, your sort of scenario before kind of touched on that. And that's if a student's family moves to another town in the district, they shall have the option of transferring to the new school of residence. So I live in Swanton, my kids go to Swanton, we move to Highgate. I can either in March or whenever, it could be October, enroll in the other town school, or I can, in this version, stay for the rest of the year. And then if I've determined that we like it and our family can figure out the transportation or whatever, we make it work, we would then apply to stay. That was the feedback from last time. So they can stay for the rest of the year, because that's good for kids, they're already there. And then if they want to stay beyond that, they would need to apply as part of the choice system.
Because they're no longer a resident at that time.
Right.
Right.
That makes sense.
Okay. And then the procedures being updated and available on websites by March 1st. So we would have policy, the procedures, and an application. And that was it. So it sounds as if really the only one is around how we want to word this subway.
So does this mean that we would not be allowing any transfers this year?
You haven't, first you have to figure out the policy. So I would hope that next time we would have a policy, we could do a first reading. We could then discuss whether we want in our first year to have like a mid-year process. And if you want that to happen, you'd have to sort of let me know right away so I could get information
And
out.
that's why I said earlier, I'd like to see a policy, because
Yep.
there may be no interest, but if we could have it done and people at second semester decide they want to transfer, it would give us a chance to try.
Mhm.
Okay?
So really, it's the siblings. What I've heard from folks is, one of the things I heard is younger siblings entering school will be given consideration in the school choice process when feasible. I heard that, that's too vague.
We'll be given priority when feasible.
Or will be given priority in the school choice process when feasible. Is that, I'm looking at body language, so there's half of you look happy and half of you don't.
It's better.
If the word is consideration, does the sentence mean nothing at that point?
Yeah,
Right.
true. You're
Exactly.
completely right.
What'd you say? Just
If the word is consideration, the sentence might as well not be in there.
Right, that's what we've been saying.
Everybody gets
But
Okay.
the word is priority in this with,
Exactly.
I
I
even
have a
think-
hard time swallowing that. I'm sorry.
no, priority under, it says under,
When
if feasible.
Yeah, I guess the priority is already not absolute, so to me that means priority, you'd be ahead of the lottery, but you would not get in if the class was already at capacity, which I think is what feasible is trying to say, so it feels like
No,
we're-
feasible isn't saying
So
that
what
to
would
me.
the feasible be saying?
Feasible to me says the example that you gave where there's a kid that really needs to get in. And it's gonna be best to meet that kid's needs, but that kid is not a sibling.
Or the
That's a new
situations
family
like they were
coming in.
talking about with older siblings taking care of younger ones. I
No.
mean, well, it's feasible. I mean,
Yes, okay, so let's say that kid needs to be
Right.
there because they have to go and take care of the kid.
exactly.
We just
And
say
they can't, 'cause
applicants
they're
who
not a
have
sibling.
a sibling at the school like that will be taken into consideration in the decision. If you have an older sibling at the school, we're not going to ignore that fact, but we're also not going to automatically put you at the top.
Right.
It's more leaves it to the principals.
So if that's the case, then I wouldn't put it in the policy, I'd put it in the procedure.
Yeah.
Because it's less of a policy statement. If you really want to say, we think siblings should get a different weighting, if you will.
Priority doesn't mean you're automatically.
No, it does not.
No, I agree.
So we're getting more and more people coming on board with priority, right?
No, I don't. I think everybody's still pretty divided where they were.
I don't know, so this is.
All right, we'll do another straw poll. All those in favor of leaving priority in, raise your hand.
Leaving it in and if feasible then? Or is that a different?
I'll be a third one then.
Okay.
Okay, so leave it as is, priority, younger siblings entering school will be given priority in school choice process. 4. Leaving it this way by adding feasible. 2, and then remove 3, sorry, and then removing it altogether. This entire sentence, just get rid of it.
Get rid of the entire sentence or get rid of the entire bullet and put it in as a procedure?
Yes.
Yes.
Out of the policy, because we're doing the policy, not the procedure.
I think it should be part of that procedure.
Me too.
So 4, 3, 1.
What about, why are we saying younger siblings? Why don't we say siblings?
Because it says entering. So yes, that would be a different thing altogether to talk about.
Terry, stop asking.
I mean, seriously.
She's right, though.
No, it is true. But I think the point of this is your 5th grader has exercised school choice, has been here for a year, so you now have a child entering kindergarten. Do they either automatically get in, do they get priority, or they're just part of the lottery? That's kind of what you're looking at.
Jay?
Well, being guilty of bringing this to the attention of the board, there's some things that have changed since I first brought it to your attention with regards to school choice, and it's becoming quite an issue throughout the state. But at any rate, like section 9 of the Act 49 and 46 and school choice is a perfect example of the legislature dumping this on you guys. And I think Don's right, that this policy will more likely serve pretty well at this snapshot in time. But it's not going to, down the road, especially if we fulfill the prophecies, I guess, for lack of a better term, that we see in Act 46 and Act 49, which states that the mergers will cause flexibility to create new and specialized areas where schools can offer exceptionally higher quality educational opportunities. And so once you go down that road and fulfill again that prophecy that the state has somehow looked up here in wisdom, that a policy on school choice is going to become increasingly difficult to maintain. Because if you have a school that develops a pre-K through 6 STEM pathway, as Dan French alluded to recently, that the success of high school depends on earlier intervention. So it's quite entirely possible that 1 or 2 of your schools may create a STEM or pre-K through 6 STEM pathway. So if you have a policy that doesn't allow certain students or a limited number of students to attend that specialized school, then that's going to be counterproductive, and also it will more likely increase your efficiency gaps in your district. So, like Don said, that this policy will serve you for now, but it's unfortunately completely ridiculous position that the state legislature put you in by passing these laws, this kind of language, and having a forethought and looking down the road, see what's going to happen. So, like I said, this policy will be right for now, but it's not going to work indefinitely. But at any rate, there's one question I want to ask. The number of parents and students that should have a request to change the placement they going to be affected by any students that are on IEPs that have been placed elsewhere?
No, it's got to be blind, Jay.
Pardon me?
It has to be a blind choice, so that it's irrespective of any kind of plan any student would be on.
Okay, well, my question is that the number of available spaces that could be affected by, say, any one of the schools that are already accepting special education students in their school determined by the IPT, maybe the least restrictive environment. I mean, you may have some kids, and you may already have some kids that are attending schools elsewhere, either in the district or out of the district. How the district doesn't care about that.
I can only answer that question sort of hypothetically because everything's case by case. It is unusual and would be unusual for an IEP team to select one public elementary school over another public elementary school unless there was an incredibly unique program that existed in one and not the other. And so it would be a very rare circumstance where an IEP team would actually do that.
Well, the only reason why I asked that is I see that as two different scenarios.
Yep.
Whereas the IEP team is the entity that makes the decision about the least restrictive environment. And I don't see where that should interfere with this policy.
It shouldn't, and it shouldn't be, well, I don't want to go down case law. But, you know, I wouldn't see that one interfering with the other. So what do you want to do with younger siblings? Because I think we're almost there.
I don't know,
I think we have a majority
even
of
need
keeping
it?
priority in what it's, at this point, we're wordsmithing that statement. So I feel like we can move forward with it in the policy, but it will probably be debated next time.
I will tell you, I want to thank everybody. This is very hard work and it's good, honest, philosophical conversations, which is what we need to have here. And if one or any of these bullets becomes a logistical challenge for us, we'll be coming to the board and saying, you know what, we thought this was going to be a good solution. We're really going to either eliminate it or change it or you know, because we don't want to be arguing over hypotheticals when, you know, but when we are looking at, we've identified it as something that could be problematic. Should it be, we'll look at the policy again, I think. That makes sense.
Do we have any students at the high school level who've chosen MVU that could have gone to Enosburg or St. Albans? Do we have any school choice students at MVU from other towns that have high school like St. Albans or Enosburg?
We did.
And we have some probably go the other way too.
That's all covered by 129.
You just wanted to know if there were any. Yeah. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't hear.
Okay. So, we'll move on from that to old business, and first up is, check warrants.
Oh, yeah. Okay, accounts payable, total of $665,692.44. Payroll checks totaling $72,229.67. Payroll other disbursements, $1,458,063.27. Payroll deductions, $366,478.34. Total payout, $2,562,463.72.
So I'll entertain a motion to accept check warrants as read.
I'll make that motion.
Second by Devin. Any discussion? I got one quick question. There was a little discussion last meeting we were here was, you know, some difficulties with the coordination of the finance committee. Has it gotten better? Got a new plan in place?
I'm there every Tuesday morning.
Smoothing out now? Cool, awesome. Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of accepting the check warrants as read, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 8-0. Financial report.
I did add this to the drive as well. Still getting used to this.
Wow.
Now that we have a few months of real expenditures, and we're starting to review reports and meet with administrators on current year financials, we are identifying areas that need to be shifted where we budgeted funds, but we're charging them elsewhere with a new account code. So it's definitely still a work in progress, but now that we have real expenses, it makes it a lot easier to kind of work through those issues. Just a reminder that on the first 2 pages, you're looking at revenues. After that, you're looking at the expenditures like you used to. Everything's divided by fund, rolled up by your function and object codes, such as instructional supplies, instructional equipment. Basically, we need to put in the your adopted budget, but if we're thinking about revenues, we were anticipating about $9,069,000 in revenues. Right now, if you look at the page 2, we've year-to-date received about $5.6 million. Primarily your some special ed funding, title, grant funds, and just your tax revenue so far. I can tell you that we are charging less to special ed. We are starting that process, and the way that 173 will affect us and interpretation of those laws. And so we are charging less items, less supplies, less anything that's not in an IEP and is just a general instructional expense is being charged to general instruction and not special ed, so we won't be receiving reimbursement on that. That's strategic that we're starting to make that transition this year so that we're positioning ourselves to be better prepared for what's coming and with the block grant and all the changes in revenue that are coming for special ed.
Then also, it's not just strategic, but it's school districts under the current model that are being audited by state special ed auditors are being told those charges are disallowed.
Right.
So we're doing 2 things. I don't want you to think that we're not getting ready.
So the agency has all the authority to just do that?
No, that's
Yes.
Currently, well, but there's some pushback on that.
They a few years ago, they started doing state reimbursement audits. They were only doing federal audits for a while. And they interpret the rules, and they will notify us, and they have been notifying us, that things like a laptop for a special educator, it used to be that was a special ed expense. Now, every teacher gets a laptop, and so why would we charge special ed for that? General ed, every teacher gets supplies and papers and things. But if there's a special thing that's in a child's IEP, that is what the supplies are for.
So is this going down the road that the secretary sent this letter out in June?
It's similar, but we'll have an update for you on those memos. They've actually rescinded those memos. But this predates that.
Okay.
I just didn't want the board to think we weren't going after all the revenue we could.
Right, I was probably leaving out part of the story, but.
Because I'm not that deeply involved, but I do talk with people, and I'm not sure the Secretary of Ed has that authority. That his memo spoke to.
That was in regards to special ed services that are provided off-site, yep.
But when you start talking, I'm thinking that this is kind of the first step going down. Hopefully not.
Laura, before you move up revenues, can I just ask a question about this? We have the adopted budget column here showing all zeros. Is that just because it hasn't been placed yet?
We have yet to put the revenue, the budgeted revenues in.
I see you have it on the expenses side, and it makes sense to me that this is what we have left on there. So eventually, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
In the next couple of weeks.
And I hate your account numbers. I just have to tell you that.
Sorry.
I hate your account numbers.
Our account numbers are awful, and
They're
only going to get worse, I hate to tell you. I did not design this.
Oh my God, they're like this long.
And we've probably gotten 40 emails as we've worked through the last couple of months saying, oh, by the way, we just made these adjustments to your chart of accounts.
Great.
By the way, here's your new chart of accounts. I'm like, are you kidding me?
It's ridiculous.
You cannot do this every week.
I have 6 digits in the ones I work with, and this is like, oh my God.
Yeah, it's
How do you memorize any of them?
It's different and it's rough, and that's why I keep driving home that this is a work in progress.
I got it.
We are really working hard at
Yeah.
this, but there's gonna be a lot of shifting. There's
The
gonna be a lot of
expenses are
journal
looking,
entries this year.
expenses looked really nice, I just noticed that it
Town
was a little
treasurer
different.
still can hold tax money still date certain.
The town,
Yeah. So when, how are we doing? Are we getting,
we're getting the same as we used to.
yeah?
Yeah,
Is
so
it
we,
December we got together all by December? Is that?
I don't know if it's December. I'd have to check on that, Don, I'm not sure. I can check on that. Okay, and then in regards to expenditures, I always, again, turn to the last page, but really that's the number that we're really keeping an eye on right now. Not to say we're not monitoring function and object codes and we're not tracking everything by building, but what I'm asking all the administration to do right now is really be thoughtful in what they're gonna be spending for the remainder of the year and encumber those funds as soon as they possibly can. So if we know there's facility issues or we know that teacher departments have units or curriculum that they're gonna be needing supplies for, we're asking them to put all of those things in as soon as possible this year, and that is again strategic to try to get a really good idea of where we're really charging things this year to set us up for budgeting for next year, because there's just a huge disparity between the new account code structure and where we're charging things to even where we budgeted. So we're working really hard with the administrators, and the administrators are working really hard with their teams to try to be thoughtful and get those in as soon as possible. I mean, right now, I definitely think the budget is in very good shape, but I am concerned about the little bit of less special ed revenue coming out on the revenue side. And we have had some out-of-district placements that have hit us kind of hard. We've had a couple facility issues that have come up in Franklin and a couple other schools, Highgate, that, these things need to come from somewhere. And so we are working really hard on identifying those and getting those funds secured now.
Okay, just to follow up on that, so you said something about facilities. Let's say all of a sudden, we need $13,000 more in facilities than we have. Who makes the decision where to go to get that money?
The admin team, working with building level principals.
So let's say that you think it should be technology or something. I mean, as a board member, I'm really concerned, and I'm particularly concerned with these initial years. Who's making those decisions, and what's the basis for those decisions? Because right now, I don't think anybody could say to you, I don't think we're gonna need the money in the budget, right? Let's say somebody needs 13,000. The admin team sits around and says, we're gonna take it here, here, here. I'm not sure I feel that's appropriate.
There's an approval process, I guess.
What's that?
Approval process?
I really do, and it's not that I'm trying to micromanage, but I could see some real problems coming out of that. Because there are certain, as we go forward, there are certain people that just, human nature, budget very tightly. And there are other people who are loosened. And if you can get a system where you can be loose, and the admin team says, yeah, then what is the message does that send next year? So I'd like to have that on that, Jeff. I'd like to have that for another discussion.
I think the auditors would rip that up.
I guess that's why I'm encouraging people I think gone are the days, and the conversations I'm having with the building level principals is, gone are the days of, that was my money, and I budgeted $1,500, and you said I have it in the budget, so it's mine, and it stays there forever. We are going to reach a point in the year very soon where that isn't going to be the case. We earmarked those funds, we were purposeful in how we budgeted, but as needs shift, there needs to be, and you're right, maybe that needs to be fine-tuned a little bit, but right now the only thing that I can do is make sure that people are purposefully planning and thinking as long-term as they can for the year to say, here's what I'm going to need. Not necessarily, I had $1,500 and I'm gonna spend every cent of it. And I'm gonna put POs in for every cent of
And I
it.
think that's a little different twist to the conversation that I want.
Yeah.
What you're asking is if, at this point, say, a Highgate had, an expense that was beyond what they had in their discretionary budget.
Right.
At this point, the conversation